All right. I'm gonna do my best just to keep consistent. Um, I'm actually quite tired today. I've been kind of hitting it hard. Um, and so probably from just a life update, not that that means anything to anybody because I don't have any kind of a following. I do post frequently on my LinkedIn. Um, but basically I left my big tech job, which all gratitudes, all gratitudes in this job market. Um, I think I had to assemble a web scraper against and build a database of jobs, and it was a wild story in the job market when I was last in it. But uh, I think it was in October of this last year, and I had some colleagues who had no idea how to code, were talented and technically inclined, and had been thinking entrepreneurially for a decade, plus in one case. And I saw these guys basically, and I think like any group of guy friends would do, because we hung out every single day, which made working remotely easy. But they busted my balls about kind of how AI is going to take my job, and it's going to that was one thing. But when I saw them go from building absolutely nothing, I'm sorry, from having absolutely nothing to building a full product and then having customers, and I'll have to plug them and show projects that these guys have come up with in another video. But when you see people, like I was invited years ago. This guy wanted me to help CTO his SaaS, which was kind of an unbelievable opportunity. It just came at a very terrible time in my life. But when you see someone run very clean money, they're running multiple millions of dollars in revenue per year, and you kind of see what that cash looks like and how that looks like as that level of cash flow is funneling and circulating through a business every day. That's one beautiful thing. What I saw with these guys was how you go from zero to $10,000 a month. And so you have to kind of know these journeys. Like, what does 10,000 a month look like? What does 30,000 a month look like? What does 100,000 a month look like? And then, 300,000 and beyond. Because I think truly, if you get to 100 to 300,000 in revenue a month, your life will change. If you're the core operator of that business, and in this case, this guy was pulling insane margins, so their annual take home, if they wanted it, was well into the 1%. But let's put all that aside because I'm just tired. I think what I'm trying to indicate is that I recently left my stable employment because these guys showed me what they were doing with AI. And I think that for anybody who out there who's technical, you cannot discount that every type of person that was out there hustling that would look in their local community for like a software engineer that could understand their vision and like even pay them some cash in order to take that opportunity seriously. These people aren't dumb, and they're capable of sitting there and prompting. They're going to do whatever it is that they need to. That's how these people think. Back in the day, it might have been that they're going to go to someone smart in town, and then they're going to go try to farm it out to Vietnam for a $10,000 MVP, trade up to a $60,000 MVP. And these people are very capable of operating the AI agents in such a way where they're able to get outcomes that my theory of why it works so well, the modern vibe coder, is that they're more or less going with a stack that is like Tailwind, React, and these are things that are abundantly available for the training set. Or in other words, if you're training a foundational model, React Tailwind is going to be probably one of the most abundant stacks to train on. This is why, if you go into an LLM and you try to operate anything in Bash, it knows it so well because there's an abundance of Linux documentation. So watching what these guys produced, albeit that they're just kind of probably talking from a features level what they're looking for, showed me that like I had to pay attention. I had to like take all of my technology and basically hand over control to the AI. But I had a challenge, which was that I wasn't working in React, I wasn't working in Tailwind, and I still believe, one of the things I'm probably going to be working on is trying to help out people who are software engineers who have a code base and they don't know how to assimilate it into AI. And that process is getting better with the tools that are kind of just shipped out of the box. But it's still kind of work in progress. And it's, I've seen now working inside of organizations that first and foremost have privacy policies about why they don't want code to reach an LLM. It's not a factor even of it being something that is subject to privacy or but there are organizations that have very tight egress rules about what data leaves the organization, and for a variety of good reasons. So there's a lot of reasons right now that the corporates are going much slower than the vibe coder. I think we're now starting to see a more serious take on what these tools can do. I would love to see more engineers attempting, bringing reliability into the space, because at the end of the day, and I would just speak to anybody who's technical, it's like these are just probabilistic output machines. And at the end of the day, when you have a tool like an LLM that is able to generate, at a 10 times quicker pace than any human programmer could do, once you have that level of differential, like, yeah, you're going to pay a 3x cost and risk about what it outputs, but like you're as soon as you can have that level of ratio better improvement, like your incentive is basically to instead build tooling around that new machine. And so that's kind of my general encouragement to anybody who's still resistant. I've encountered professional engineers who are still kind of like, there was a while where everyone was talking about Claude Code, and I finally used it because Copilot shut down access, and it's a degradation. Like, yes, you can do cool things in the CLI, and like I think that we'll all kind of go back there because of, or maybe we'll go to an open source UI, but I think on some levels, like, it's two things. Like, for people who are not yet using the UI tools, like they just provide a superior experience. So Copilot provides you like a diff of the files that you're working on, that the chat has worked on in that session, and that's very helpful. Same for being able to navigate around and easily attach files. There's just no amount of like keyboard kung fu that's going to compare. But I think that we will probably end up going back to the CLI tools as we try to, improve token efficiency. So I'm not even going to talk today about, in anything related to the news or that I talked about in my last video. But I think it's to say that, I mostly just left this job, I think, because I think there's an opportunity to go faster than any corporate is going to go right now for structural reasons. So we're in kind of a golden era, which like the last time we were here was like 2010. So, it's a great time it's a lot of creative destruction. And I think that that's a good thing. And yeah, I'm here for it. And I'm just gonna, it's gonna start out kind of rough looking in terms of my videos, but I think as I've mentioned in a past video, basically I'm gonna be, using AI to improve my own videos. So that will happen at some point here soon. And yeah, I will probably post more regularly, just documenting the journey and so on. But yeah, I mean, it just became very clear to me, even though the money in corporate's nice, and even though when you work remote, it's just, you have such a superior amount of flexibility, and it is obviously such a privilege. But there just comes a point where you're missing a bigger opportunity of something that you could work on elsewhere to get ahead. So I don't know. Here's to seeing what that will be, and I'm excited and looking forward to it.